and gentlemen, this is the Above the Bar podcast, a show about a middle-aged father, current events, and how these things affect my everyday life. Alrighty, folks, welcome to another episode of the Above the Bar podcast. We're bellowing up to the bar today. We have my scariest guest to date. Has nothing to do with anything more than Bryan is a ethical hacker, which we will find out what that means. I'm assuming he's like Angelina Jolie in the movie Hackers. He's like ethical. I'm not sure if that's what it means, but he is a ethical hacker.
I'm definitely not hot, so
I guess we'll find out. We'll see if Jeanette or my wife makes any comments. My wife likes to make comments. But is a ethical hacker, another Marine like myself, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of everything today, getting into some different stuff. But as always, before we get started on any of our shows, we have to do a little bit of that housekeeping. The important stuff that's out there. First. Oh, look! And as I turn my phone on to do something, first things first. As always, over my right shoulder we have the board for sticker and a cause. Bryan, what this is, because Bryan doesn't know. Bryan hasn't bellied up to the bar. He was nice enough to be our DD today. Sticker and a cause for me is if you've got a thing, whatever that thing is, whether it is your kids' bar mitzvahs coming up, or the important one, the 22 for the suicides, any of those things, a show, whatever you're doing, you send me that sticker. I will put it up on the board, and we will talk about it, and we will let everybody know about it. As you can see, and next week, folks, we get the bearded people back again. We got Aaron right there, and we're gonna have Scott next week, folks. So we'll be back with that, but that's where it all started at. So sticker and a cause. If you have something, please let us know. We are going to be putting one up. Those of you that follow me on Facebook also know I am a huge Anthony Bourdain fan. I can actually tell you what episode that is from for Anthony Bourdain, and I actually got the sticker for it. And Bryan and I were talking a little bit about this beforehand, and we'll get into that. But we lost Anthony in June 25th of 2018. And somebody said it online the best. We lost him to a broken heart. He couldn't take it anymore. And Anthony took his own life. As a Marine, I have often used to have to do invocations for Marine Corps balls and things like that. And one of my big thing was always remember the scars that you cannot see, folks. So take a moment. We all like to talk about, the guy who, you can see his scar. And look, that person deserves that attention from you also. But also take a moment and think about that Marine that that's out there. What the hell? Something's attacking me. That Marine that's out there that who or other service member. I'm a little partial to Marines. We're just the cool kids on the block. But I'm a little partial to that. But, take that time and do a buddy check. If you haven't heard from that Marine or you haven't heard from a service member, take a moment, pick up the phone, give them a call, let them know, like, hey, just thinking about you, just seeing how your day's going. There's Andrew. Bryan, Andrew's another one of my fans and another Marine. He says it best. Not all wounds are visible. There's plenty of us that'll pop up on here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll put Andrew's picture up there because that's important. The other thing that's so important to me is we need to take a moment, go onto whatever device, whatever way you're listening to this, and make sure you share the living daylights out of it. As always, the most important thing with this show is to make sure you share it to every yard sale site that you belong to on Facebook until they actually turn around and ban you and kick you off of it. Or some or some person, let me correct myself. Let me be much more politically correct because I'm good at that. Turns around and wants to know, why are you sharing something that has nothing to do with whatever this subject that doesn't exist anymore, why you're sharing it to that page. So make sure you share it everywhere you can. So as I'm sharing away, I'm going to go ahead and bring Mr. Bryan. Look, for those of you watching live, his studio is awfully impressive, and I'm sure that somewhere in there's a hat that says Big Red One or something along that line. For those of you that are Marines will understand completely what that is. Something tells me he's gone into a recruiter's office and asked for a sticker before. He just has that look.
No. Like I got the T-shirt that said "Pain is weakness, leaving the body" when I joined, and then lost it. I think I gave it to a girl.
Don't we always?
Jody, something like that. Always the same damn thing. I can't get a haircut much longer than this. It starts to drive me crazy.
Dude, look, every other week I have a standing appointment with my barber every other week.
You're allowed to sit though,
What are you talking about? I am sitting.
Standing appointment?
Yeah, haha. But bum. Thank you. I'll be here. Yes.
I went into the pandemic out of a breakup that was devastating. And I was out of shape. I was eating my feelings. That's the only vice I have left. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't party. I raise kids alone. Food becomes your reward. But then you get older and then you eat 1 pound of food and get 5 pounds of fatter, and it sucks. So like having to just eat carrots instead of cupcakes, and my kids want to eat snake. They don't want to do it either. I don't want to do it. I'm not on board with this either. So I built a gym in my garage along with this podcasting sort of studio setup and started working out and doing my pull-ups again. And I went from doing 1 to like 12 in a row in like 6 months.
So it's funny you talk about that. So the one thing I couldn't break was push-ups. I still do 50 push-ups every morning.
How tall are you?
5'8".
Okay. But yeah, it's like how long your arms are makes a difference. Being 6'4" is a whole different.
Fella. You're a little feller.
Yeah. Weighed 255.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw your pictures on Twitter and LinkedIn, and you definitely have dropped a lot of weight, because those pictures, I was like, when you came on, and get a little behind the curtain, we always do a little bit of pre-show, a little bit of pre-planning before the show for about 10 minutes, make sure we have everything.
I'll send you what I looked like at 29. I was 350 pounds. I had a beard like yours. It was bright red. I was fat and nasty. It was awful. And then I got divorced, and then you realize you can't sell a car on Craigslist if it's filled with McDonald's trash bags. You got to clean that shit out and then go to the gym or do something. And yeah, so this thing was no different. Like getting into a positive sort of routine out of something negative was a really, really good idea. So the pandemic sucked, but it was really helpful for me because I had nothing to do but time and place to work out.
Well, see, you know what? There's a lot of us, I think, that going into it and coming out of it, like got it. So for those of you who didn't realize it, guess what? Also, you get to be on a very special show today, Bryan. This is a very special show today with Bryan, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to sit down. We're going to discuss some things. But it's 1 year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
This is my 1 year anniversary of the Above the Bar podcast. So as all of you are listening, Jeanette will have to tell me what she means by Seely is the male Jolie. I'm not sure what she means, but she's from jolly old England. So she'll let me know. And my cousin Heather, nope, I am not left-handed. I'm not a lefty. I am a right-handed all day long, but it might be because of the camera thing. Like this is my left, but in the camera it's on my right. So no idea what that's all about. She might mean a Jody. She might mean that he's a Jody. You are a little bit. I mean, are you a little bit of a Jody?
I won't sleep with somebody if they're dating somebody else. Okay. Like that's like I will do whatever it takes to protect somebody who's in a relationship. Like I'm not going to be part of breaking somebody up or whatever.
Oh, you are the Jolie, like Angelina Jolie. You are the male Angelina Jolie. You are our hacker, But that's what we're going to get into today. So I promise you, between me, you, and Andrew, if Andrew's able to hang with us, he's in Indianapolis. If he's able to hang, we'll probably end up going into some wholly different things. You vape. Do you sit when you pee also?
Yeah. Usually because I don't want to wake my kids up. Did you know did you know they pretty much sit to pee all over the world except for here? Like Europe, if you pee standing up, you'll get yelled at because it's like, why are you making a mess? That just seems like ridiculous. Like, so the definition of like what's male versus what's female versus manly and not manly is a completely different and always changing thing.
Well, that's like it, and we'll have Andrew. You're right. We'll find out what that is here in a minute. But it's funny you say that. So I remember being in Toulon, France, and when first off, a lot of countries like to talk about good sandwiches and whatnot, and we have the Philadelphia cheesesteak. Baltimore has one of my favorite sandwiches, which is a pit beef sandwich. If you've never had pit beef, it is a game changer. Everywhere, and actually in Philly, what's better is the pork sandwich and the French dip and all these things. Any Marine or even sailor who is worth their weight in salt that has been to Toulon, France, and had a smash sandwich will tell you this is the most glorious sandwich. So whatever your protein is, whether it's a burger or it's chicken, you're Googling it right now, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Whether it's burger or chicken, on this good French bread with lettuce, tomato, whatever it is that you're into, and then they put the French fries on top of this thing.
The first result is if you're deployed on a MEU in the 90s and hit Toulon, France, in Reddit/r/USMC.
There it is. And this sandwich is about 2 inches tall. And they got you in two different ways. The place didn't open up till like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and there was 4 of them. And they only hired the most attractive French women that they could find. So you were already half in the bag, any one of us thinking that we had a shot. And they would take this sandwich and then they would put it in this press and lock it. But the press brought the sandwich to about an inch. So your French fries, your meat, everything was on there. And the best spicy mustard ever. I remember having this mustard and it actually made my nose water.
So they're saying, okay, they called it the Americain, and it is a one of a kind. So it's a style. There's a bunch of variations. Ground beef patty on a baguette, shredded Gruyere, panini maker, they slathered in mayonnaise, and the pommes frites, the French fries. Sausages used instead of beef. You can do different types of cheese or mustard. Wow, a lot of cool things.
That ruin your whole diet. And yes, Pat. So Pat, you know these ultra marathon whack jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Pat. Pat's an ultra marathon whack job. But he's also.
I met another one of those guys recently. It's like they run so much they don't know that they're cars that you can like get in and drive around in. Jesus.
Well, you know what's better than that is, so I met Pat when I worked for the railroad. He's a great guy, phenomenal guy. Another Pennsylvania guy. I'm from Baltimore. We hit it off and whatnot. But here's a funny one about him is he was like talking about all this running and asked me why I didn't. And I'll never forget telling him that shit's not tied to my paycheck anymore.
The Marine Corps made all exercise punishment. It took me at least a decade to even kind of break it to like, people are like, hey, we're in Seattle. There's so many great hikes. And be like, you mean humps? I don't want to go do that. I don't want to put on. No, fuck that. That sounds awful. That was punishment.
Right. Like I remember people like my daughters love to go hiking. My wife loves to go hiking. And they'll be like, we're going to do these peaks. And I'm like, you guys can go do that shit on your own. Like we finally started camping after all these years. I bought a 31-foot Granite Ridge RV, just this amazing 6-foot slide out, queen size bed. We can go camping anywhere you want to go camping now. Other than that, fuck them. And Miss Amanda Love, sidebar, folks, we will be having Amanda Love and the ladies on here in a couple of months, and we're going to be prepping them for a live show that they're going to be doing. Finally, as we're coming out of COVID here. But I want to get it. So Andrew wants to know, what's the football?
Oh, that is a gift from Steve Young of the 49ers. You know who Steve Young is?
I might, maybe. And I got a Steve Young story for you.
He gave it to me last week in Park City, Utah. I was the keynote speaker at an event that his equity firm was putting on. He spoke in the morning. Got to meet him. I spoke at like, I want to say 1 o'clock. Spoke till 2:30 on the closing day of the executive summit, where all the CEOs of all the companies that they invest in as an equity firm. After I was finished speaking, the managing director presented that to me, and it says, "Bryan, thanks for making me safer. Steve Young, Hall of Fame, 2005."
That's awesome.
That was kind of dope. Like, I'm putting that in a case and putting it on my desk.
So, you'll appreciate this. And
he's a nice dude.
He seems like just one of those nice football guys that he's never heard a bad thing about.
Nothing bad. He's just so nice to everyone. Great guy.
So you'll appreciate. So this is a very Marine Corps story. You'll appreciate this one, Bryan.
Awesome.
This is such a Marine Corps story because remember, every Marine that you will ever meet gave up a full ride scholarship to go play some sport. They were the athlete of the year where they were from.
I know one guy who actually was that guy, but only one.
So
he set the record for pull-ups in my platoon and for the entire Marine Corps at 76.
What year was that?
2004, 2003. Lance Corporal Seth Redford left after graduating USC Law School, went to become an enlisted Marine at 30 years old after playing professional soccer in Europe, because he wanted to learn what it was like to be enlisted before he went officer. He got honor guide out of boot camp, had a perfect 300 PFT every single time, was running a 14-something 3-mile, and then said he was on the bar for 20 minutes and did 76 pull-ups in his first attempt in boot camp.
Yeah, I hate him already. Like
he was so nice. It was so hard to hate him, but he was I made an effort. He was my squad leader, and it's like, oh, damn it.
So you'll appreciate this story. I don't even remember this gunny's name. I was a young Lance Corporal. So we're talking.
Gunnies don't matter.
Yeah, not yet. What? I mean, I'm sorry. You might be the hacker, but I will delete you. So don't even remember the gunny's name. I remember he had a scar across his neck, and he claimed that it was from going into his base housing. And there was he was a staff sergeant at the time, and there was a staff sergeant had broke into his base housing and was hiding behind the door. And when the two of them fought, the dude cut his neck. And he was Bryan, my man was big. This dude was big. He was like your size, like 6'4", just a rock. So we're out in Vietnam, Fort Bragg, doing a gun shoot. You laugh. It's laugh because you know it's true. Have you ever been out to that place? It is.
I haven't, but the stories seem to proceed.
They're all about the same. So we're out there, and I don't even remember what I'm doing. So all of a sudden, I hear this. The fuck is going on back here? It's behind the tent. I go back. Gunny's standing like 50, 60 yards, and he's whooping these footballs. Bang! And guys are like, ugh. And I'm like, good Lord. I was like, Guns, you got an arm. What the hell are you doing here? So he proceeds to tell us all the story of how in high school he was the starting quarterback, had a great opportunity, was supposed to go to college, and he blew his knee out in his either junior or senior year. And everybody couldn't stand his backup because he was a good quarterback, but he kept running too much. Steve Young was his backup in high school.
Wow.
And he was
that was in Connecticut.
Where I don't know where he was from. Yes.
Steve grew up and we went to school in Connecticut. I was doing a research on all of the different executives in the room because I was doing sort of open source intelligence gathering so that during my speech, I could present them all with all of their private information that's all over the internet that they didn't know about. And for example, with Steve, Steve's not his first name.
What's his first name?
It's not hard to look up, but the idea being it's like you look him up on Wikipedia. You can find enough about him. It shows where he went to high school, talks about his career. It's just super interesting. It's like, he went by Steven because of one reason or another, but it's really smart. that, and he doesn't have any enemies because no one hates him. Like, it's just
Yeah,
a
he
nice
doesn't
dude.
seem like a hard like this guy said that the only reason that the other players didn't like him, and a lot of people forget this about him. He was a running quarterback when he first got into the NFL. He was a threat at all times to run, just had a strong arm. I remember those days.
He was talking about why the NFL was tough because everyone was taller than everywhere else he played, and that he had to throw blind often because he couldn't see anyone being open because quarterbacks are normally taller than he is. So you can't see over all the people that are huge wearing giant padding and huge helmets that aren't exactly great for the view.
So now you bring that up. So let's get into this a little bit. And James, are you going to, I think James is going to be on that with Amanda Love and the rest of the ladies. So you just talked about that. So tell everybody what it is that you do, what an ethical hacker is, and how did you go? What was your MOS in the Marine Corps? MOS, military occupational specialty, are jobs in the Marine Corps. What it was and how it translated to what you do today.
So it didn't exactly directly translate, but I was a linguist and spent 2 years at DLI. So
Defense Language Institute.
It's a joint service base in Monterey, California. It's a really horrible duty station to have. You don't want to go there. It's paradise. It's pretty nice there. Like Carmel by the Sea, except for the fact that the hills are a nightmare. They make Pendleton look like it's flat because some of them are just murder. And then there's 17-mile drive. It's 17 miles long. And then they'll run you on it. Like, hey, we're going to do this because someone's a smartass. Probably. I couldn't shut off my personality long enough to like not ask questions and be like, why don't we have mops? Or why are we going to Iraq with no armor on our Humvees? Okay, I'll just shut up. Never mind. So the idea being I was a linguist, and that gives you an entryway into human intelligence or signals intelligence or other forms of intelligence because you have to get a top secret clearance with an SCI designation. Top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information clearance. That's a clearance that addresses very sensitive information. It's not like JFK's assassination sensitive. It's imminent intel related to current operations. So they split up the information into, like, for translation, for example, so that no one person has all the intel about one thing, because it's too dangerous for one person who's not fully vetted or trusted. So they give lots of people pieces of it. Otherwise, people will die.
Okay. So that was you in the Marine Corps. And what was your language?
I actually spoke Japanese going in. I grew up in Tokyo. My parents were missionaries with the Christian church. I lived there about 14 years, obviously. And then joined the Marine Corps to kind of. I failed out of college. My life has been nonsense from day one. So
all I could think of is like, my parents are missionaries. Let me find the organization so anti-missionary. Like even missionary position is like not even.
That's boring too. Like, who does that? Oh, with the lights off.
This is great. Now I'll have to stay in touch because my one son actually wants to be a language English
maybe
language
work on your
teacher in
segues. Don't say missionary position and then go right into your son.
Well, you know,
Bill Cosby was just exonerated and released from prison.
Oh, my buddy Keith just told me that's a whole nother thing. Like, how do we exonerate that guy? Like,
there was a technicality, and he's being let out after 3 years. He's a rapist and a molester, and he drugged people, and he got away with it, and it sucks. Hope he gets COVID.
We have a guest who's a very good friend of the show. I still talk to him, Jeff Diskovich. Jeff spent 16 years in jail for a crime he did not commit of rape and murder, and had to have like DNA evidence and like
depending on when you went in, there probably wasn't
89.
DNA. Yeah, 89. There wasn't DNA available.
And it took 16 years for a 16-year-old boy to finally be released. This dirtbag that everyone proved did it, and it's just like,
you should look up the guys on the Innocence Project. They just did a bunch of Rogan appearances and stuff because they're starting to come out with these other podcasts about bite marks not being reliable, forensics, blood spatter not being reliable forensics, and the only really reliable one is DNA and maybe ballistics. But other than that, like, you can just make up all this junk science and get people put behind bars. And the worst part is the guy who did it, he's off doing it again.
Oh yeah. Well, that was Jeff's situation. Was the guy who did it, killed somebody else afterwards, went to jail for that one.
Dude,
and
you
finally,
could have just not killed somebody and gotten away with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, nobody would have ever known. This guy would have stayed his whole life in jail.
Be like,
and no one would have ever known. Yeah.
But no, you just had to go and found a Karen, took your parking spot, whatever.
So now how do we go from, speaking Japanese, can order sushi properly, can what is that not? Can
no,
order
sushi? I just never thought of it before.
can order sushi properly, can pronounce udon and knows what yakisoba really is. I logged into my computer 30 minutes early to double check that my mouse wasn't moving on its own so that you weren't in my shit. How do we go from one to the other?
Well, one, you're not important enough. Number
two. Hey.
Hey, I told you. I warned you. Corporal talking shit to Gunny in the nicest possible way.
This is called tact, folks. This is what they taught us in the Marine Corps, is how to tell people to bite sand without actually saying bite sand.
I'll get right on that. Sounds an awful lot like go fuck yourself. Like, it's just one of those nice little, you know what? I'll take it under advisement.
My least favorite term that ever came out of the Marine Corps, and like I have chewed people up and down for this one, is with all due respect.
I'm going to say something horrible right after this, but with all due respect, you better be bringing some respect, or I'm going to hurt you.
There you go. Andrew says tactful asshole. Like all due respect was one of those ones where I would be like, somebody would be like, Gunny, with all due respect, I'd be like, shut your mouth. Do not say what you're about to say. Take a moment, think about the proper way to say that to me, because saying all due respect just means that you didn't take 2 seconds to let the words simmer in your brain.
It's the same thing as I'm not racist, right?
Right, exactly.
But now racist thing that I'm about to say.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Mm-mm. So how do we get into, like, were you always a computer kid? The other Japanese kids picked on you because you couldn't do it. What was the deal?
I went to a private American school from 4th grade till 12th grade in Tokyo. I lived in the U.S. Through elementary mostly. So going in Japan, I watched Star Trek. I played on the computer. I played video games, hung out with my friends, normal stuff. I ended up getting part-time jobs in like middle and high school, $15 an hour, $20 an hour, fixing printers, fixing computers, just helping people in the community of missionaries and other Americans and expats in that area. And it was, just natural for that. It's like, I always liked people, and having those two skill sets is fairly unique, especially in the higher echelons. So fast forward, go to college, fail out of the first year, drunk all the damn time. Beginning of, having no supervision. And I definitely need to be supervised in one way, shape, or form, because it can get interesting. So go to the Marine Corps. It was just like, I was bored. I had nothing going on in my life. I'm 19. I turned 20 in boot camp. F it. Why not? And so then it was kind of off the races. After I got out, spent 2 years with contractors in Kuwait, Iraq, Syria, Emirates, working with defense contractors. I got to work with the Japanese military over there as a translator between American bases. I was the only person in Iraq for a year that spoke English, Japanese, had a weapons permit, and a CAT card. And so I ran into somebody I knew from Japan who I hung out with on Yokota Air Force Base when I was in high school. I ran into him in Tallil Air Force Base, which is like a mile away from where Abraham is buried. There's a ziggurat right outside Cedar 1 and Cedar 2. Anyone who's ever been deployed knows those two stupid, stinky bases. And Tallil Air Force Base is the Air Force Base that we seized and used as logistics hub. Southern Iraq, essentially. And so it's right outside of the city of Urka, Urka. And you can see the The ziggurat, the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian face all recognize this one location. It's like, yeah, that's where he is. It's nuts. It's hotter than hell. 120, 130, 140 at its worst. You're drinking water so often. You can't touch your gun because it's too hot. You have to wear gloves. But now you're wearing gloves. Like, it's just a mind F. It's like, I don't want to be here. That's why they're pissed. No one wants to be here. This place
sucks.
They're like, get us out of here. But yeah. 2 years over there, I got back to the States, went back to Japan to visit family, promptly drug and alcohol problems.
When you got back over there?
No, back home after 2 years. So August 06 is when I left the Middle East.
Now, what are you calling back home? Japan or the States?
Japan. But then I went to the States, back and forth between visiting friends and.
Now that I guess what in my mind, I think like, and I think most people that think about overseas and drug laws and stuff like that, but I guess it's the same everywhere that like buying or finding drugs in Japan would be like, you know, Yakuza, getting your hands cut off.
Well, the people who get pinkies or stuff cut off are people who are already in the Yakuza. So you can't, like, if you have tattoos like this and you're not Japanese, you cannot be in the Yakuza. You have to be Japanese to be in. And so that's not it's not like they punish civilians. They actually do everything they can to avoid hurting or doing anything to civilians. It's all like inter-gang stuff because it's their innocence and they actually give a shit. When the Kobe earthquake hit in 95, the first people on the scene to give out blankets and food were the mafia, not the police, not aid organizations. It was the mafia doing it. They're there to, like, out of some misplaced sort of loyalty, lack of a corresponding agency to the government.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Actually, like, I even did one of my college papers was on the last shogun of Japan. I studied Japanese sword. So I find all this very interesting that you live there and then my son wants to move there.
It's arguably the safest place I've ever lived. If I had to pick a spot on earth that my daughter had to be naked holding a clear plastic bag of money, you can put her anywhere in Japan at any time of day in the worst neighborhood you can find. And the first thing that will happen is someone will go, "Are you okay? Can I take you to the police station to get you help?" No one's robbing her. No one's touching her. It's just, this person needs help. Let's take care of it. Doesn't matter who it is.
That here she'd be on World Star.
Kids, or worse, kids can go to school on the train, like 10 train stops at like 5 or 6 years old by themselves, and it's completely fine. Normal.
But they were over there. It's very different culturally, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Like, they respect people's age and their wisdom.
They respect everyone else but themselves. It's a society first. It's everyone is more important than myself as an individual. And I don't want to do anything to jeopardize the honor of our society. So people don't jaywalk. They get out of the passing lane immediately. Everyone takes the right side of the stairs on the way up or down, so no one's in the way of anyone else. You don't want to bother anyone. And it's taboo to talk on the train. It's unreal. Nothing's broken. No one's a dick. It's 20 or 30 million people packed into this small little area, and it's conflict free essentially because it wouldn't work otherwise. And they've been a civilized country to having like tea ceremonies, a rich culture, art, while we were still shitting in ditches in the Stone Age, essentially, in Europe.
They already, and there's Ken. Ken's my best friend. He's another Marine, and he has his master's in cybersecurity. He's right in your wheelhouse. But he was an 01. We won't hold that against him.
Oh, I can.
There's a whole story about me like yelling at him about my pay and him being like, "You're wrong," and I'm like, "No." He was absolutely right.
What was your MOS, Gunny?
Which time? I've actually, in my time in the Marine Corps, I had 3.
Of course you did.
Actually 4. I started off as a 3521 motor T mechanic, broke everything I touched. I was a horrible mechanic. Like,
Shocker.
yeah, no surprise there. I, one of the stories was I was fixing I removed the oil pan on a Humvee, and it was supposed to be 12 inch pounds of torque for the bolts. Um, so I torqued them at 12 foot pounds and snapped like 4 or 5 of them. And I was young. I see where
Bing,
you turn when you
bing,
turn. Yeah, exactly.
Bing. Like, why isn't it clicking?
Like
Well,
where you
I should just do 5 more.
yeah, like this is the machine. This fucking torque wrench is broken. Where you turned 20 in boot camp, I turned 18.
Soup sandwich.
So I did that, and I was going to re-enlist, and the Marine Corps was like, avionics on CH-53 Echo helicopters. So I was a 6323, and I was very good at that. Actually, I could understand that there wasn't a lot of bolts to turn. It made sense. I could read schematics, no problem. And very typical Marine Corps fashion. 2 years, almost to the damn day, I got orders to recruiting duty. And it was one of those ones like, I'm a sergeant. There is no way on God's green earth I'm getting out of this. And I'm not shooting myself in the foot, physically or literally, to get out of it. So I went on recruiting duty, did 3 years on recruiting duty, was highly successful.
Yeah, you've got a knack for you like people. You don't
little
hate
bit.
people.
I'm a little bit of a talker. I was highly successful at that, and actually ended up recruiter of the year. Ran my own station.
No shit.
Oh yeah. At one point in time, in a matter of 22 months, I wrote 75 contracts. And people used to be like, "You're a liar. That's how you did it." I'm like, actually, just the opposite in the Marine Corps recruiting.
If you tell people the truth, they respect it, and oftentimes they'll tell their friends because, look, he told me all the real deal about this stuff. Like, rather than be like, "Oh, dude, you can be whatever you go to the Marine Corps, and then you just be a Navy SEAL, and like you should do whatever you want."
Just do what you want. Brian, I used to look at kids and they would walk in my office and be like, "You ain't got it. Have a nice day." What?
You know how I got linguist? I was assigned to NBC. I was lied to by my recruiter that I went and took the D-Lab.
Oh, you took D-Lab?
And my recruiter bet me a whole log of dip that I wouldn't beat his score of 60.
That's all you got was a 60?
He got a 60. I got a 130.
So sidebar, and so, I finished my career off. I went back to avionics for a year and a half, knew I would never pick a multimeter up again, and went back on recruiting duty. And so out of my 20 years, almost 12 of them were spent in some form of recruiting fashion.
Wow.
As I like to say, I did the devil's work. Most times I had 2 hours to take what a parent had taught you for 18 years and completely change that and give you a new plan. 2 hours. And I was pretty damn good at it and trained a lot of Marines to do it.
But I tell you what, like, if I could go back to the just the first few times in the Marine Corps, like I'm a couple days out of boot camp waiting at the Holiday Inn. I'm 20 years old in Los Angeles, waiting for a flight the next day to Japan to visit my family. I go to the bar. They'd given me 4 drink tickets, and I showed my ID, and the guy goes, "Oh, well, you're Marine. All right, you're fine," and serves me. The girl next to me is Spanish, speaks no English, and I took 2 years of Spanish in high school in Japan, so it's not great, but I speak enough Spanish to talk a little bit. Gave her my room number, and she shows up an hour later at my door, not for conversation. You could go to the beach, take your shirt off, and that's a pickup line. That was new.
The plan wasn't to give away all my recruiting secrets, but one of my greatest tools that I ever used. So my office had a mirror behind the door, and I would take those kids and I would put the dress blue jacket on them, and I would tell them, "Look in that mirror. What do you see?" And they would get all pumped up and they would get all excited. And it was actually a female Marine that said this to me. And you know what? I'll tell you that one off air. That'll be an off air conversation because I don't want to get myself hemmed up in anything. but that told me a line to use with these kids about
Oh yeah,
tail in a toilet seat and that jacket and pulling and all kinds of stuff. And it was like, you know, it was true. And it was
all stuff we've heard 150 times.
150 times every day. And it was, that uniform was highly effective. Well, most people don't realize, it's still to this day, it's the only military uniform ever featured in GQ magazine. It was featured. And that was back when it was still tricolor camis.
I was the second to the last platoon ever issued those.
Well, here's one for you, since you go and do, and I want to talk about this. You go and do these talks with all these CEOs and all these people. At one point in time, 1/3 of every Fortune 500 company had a Marine at the helm. I
wouldn't be surprised.
There's a book called, oh God, I can't think of the name of it. It's on the cover. It's half dress blues and half a suit. But at one point in time, 1/3 of all U.S. companies had a Marine running it.
Some of them are really, really heavily populated too. Like you'll get into a shop like we're in IT or something, and there'll be 10 veterans, 5 Marines or whatever, and like everyone's just sort of magnetized towards each other because you know how each other are going to react, how you work. Your work ethic could be a little different, but everyone wants to do a good job and they're trying to do their best. Like there's this kind of you don't have to train a whole bunch of other stuff.
Well, language is such a big part of it also. You and I, Brian, tell people how long we've known each other.
How long has this podcast been going on? Plus exactly. 5 minutes?
47 minutes we've actually spoken to each other. And we talk like we've known each other for years. This is what we do in the services. This is why when other people meet us and we meet other service members, I could say to Brian right now, who are you with? He knows I'm talking about
unit.
There you go. What unit? And that's why when somebody's like, so I was in the service, I was in, and I'm like, oh, really? Who were you with? And they're like, huh? What do you mean?
Or they say the letter instead of a number for a platoon or something. It's just something off, like they're making it up, and it just quickly becomes very, very obvious.
It's a factual thing. And
like, look, when you're standing online in boot camp, what do you hold in your hand when you count off?
Are you talking about, well, you have your laundry bag, or you have your ditty bag, or you have
money valuables or something.
Money valuable
like
bag.
That, right. So those little things like you can't fake or you can't. But once we all know each other, I've driven halfway across the state to drop someone off who I knew was a Marine. I'd never met him. The night I got out of boot camp, I stayed in the TAD housing at MCRD in San Diego.
Okay.
And met a bunch of guys who were also TAD there as MPs. They didn't know I was just out. They thought I was another just pass through. They didn't know I had just graduated because normally families show up for the graduation. I was alone. So I'm staying there, hanging out with these guys and drinking, and I ended up handcuffed to a vending machine because they were showing me various tactics that they would handcuff people and body hardening, and because at some point they found out that I had just graduated boot camp, and that was not good for me. And I woke up almost like an hour before my flight. The guy who I'd met first went, I packed up your room. I checked you out. Your stuff's in my truck. We know you have a flight. We're taking you to the airport right now.
Now, do you see this, Brian?
Uh-huh.
I still keep but for those of you that are listening to the audio later, that was all my challenge coins. Still keep my challenge coins. I set them next to.
What else would you do with them?
Well, because that's a hockey puck from 1st Marine Corps District.
Oh, awesome.
That was a great thing about recruiting duty. They good tchotchkes on recruiting duty. But you know what? You talk about those rituals that have changed over the years. Buddy of mine, Jeff, we're still friends on Facebook. He was probably the first Marine that I used to use his first name as Jeff, and I used to be, Jeff, what are you doing?
It's like painful to try and start doing. It's such an act of rebellion where you're like, hello, Aaron, how are you today? Like, it becomes this weird, like,
yes,
somebody doing a white guy voice.
Well, Ken gets on me all the time because I still use military time, but I forget. So I've started to use it with civilians that I have to use regular time because I want to use military time so that they're not confused about what time I'm
You don't have to
telling
say
them.
AM or PM, and then there's no
No,
weird like, why didn't you show up?
it's so much simpler. But you talked about Japan. We talk about, look, I will be the first to tell you there were some horrific hazing rituals that have no business in the military. None whatsoever.
I've had to pull pins out of my collarbone with
For
pliers.
promotion.
Yeah. But the thing is, no one makes you do it. They build this culture within your unit to where you request it because you want it. You want to be the moto guy. You want to get their approval. So you'll volunteer for this fucked up stuff. And people get hurt. People can get sick. People die. It's not.
Oh, yeah. Well, Jeff ended up getting promoted to corporal and getting his blood stripe in Oki. Oki is short for Okinawa, folks. And when they pinned him, he walked the gauntlet, which I don't even know if they still do. Some of these things, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, no, they do.
I joined in 94.
It's all done behind closed doors outside of the purview because Master Sergeant or Sergeant Major or whoever, it's like, we're not doing this again. And we're like, oh yeah, no, Scouts Honor, totally. 15 minutes later, not even.
Well, what year did you join?
2002.
So you joined 8 years after me. So a lot of these things had made 60 Minutes in 2020, the Flight Wings. And have you ever seen the one, and I won't say what they did, the one that was Marine Corps 8th and I Barracks Drum and Bugle Corps? Have you ever seen that one with the MNU?
Yep.
Go look that up, folks. And if you want to see a hazing ritual that you can pound sand, it ain't happening on this watch. I don't need to be in that unit. My unit don't need to be in that unit.
Was it the credit carding?
No, it was the MNU brush, or not the MNU, but the boot polish brush, the liquid, and painting people's members. You've never seen this?
I'd probably do that on a dare.
Oh no, they said that was like highly like burned up.
Well, is that like doing blackface? But
no. We ain't gonna get into that. Ken just sent me a text. Ha ha ha. Joined in 94. I think it was in middle school. You're my best friend. You're 40 years old. You're 4 years younger than me. Shut up. But there were these things that were out there. But that happened to Jeff. Jeff ended up with like in bed because the bruising was so bad. I had, when I re-enlisted, Ray Dutton, still a good friend of mine. He is a New York City cop. I'll never forget this. We got done, and one of the corporals that was in the room, or sergeant maybe even, asked the chief warrant officer, and now he's a retired master guns. He was a gunny, and the captain to leave the room. And they just smiled. Now, hazing had already been like outlawed at this point. This is 1998. They smiled. Were like, "Have a nice day, Murph. See you later." I took a legal ass whooping, but Ray Dutton took a bigger ass whooping, Brian. You know why? Because they cut the lights off in the room, and Ray was bigger than I was, but I was more tactful. So I kicked his legs out from under him and pulled him on top of me. And all you could hear was, "Ah! Ah, that's not him, that's me. Ah, stop. Ah." Yeah, he took an ass whoop. And then finally somebody turned the lights on, and I got a couple of hits in, but at that point they were all tired.
Yes, idiots getting all tired punching me. It's this stupid macho mentality that, like, you want to be a part of us, you got to be hard like us. But really, that's not how it really is. It's this weird little celebration of stupidity, and it doesn't mean you're a man. And the thing about the Marine Corps that disappointed me the most was way after the fact is that your emotions don't matter and therefore other people's really don't matter.
Right. Yeah.
And that doesn't leave you equipped to handle life once you get out, because life can get it gets lonely immediately because you don't have a group of friends who are as dumb as you are doing dumb shit like boxing in the barracks on a fucking Friday. But those people have your back no matter what. Like they'll come running and get you when you're getting jumped at a bar. But you have no idea what you're in for when all of a sudden you're drinking alone. You don't know how to get rid of all the nasty shit in your head, stuff you've done, you regret, whatever. Mm-hmm. No one's telling you to go to therapy in the Marine Corps. No one's telling you to deal with your problems.
It's frowned upon. Don't go see the wizard. Don't go see the wizard.
And I'm telling anyone who's listening, whoever listens to it, it is complete horseshit. It will leave you. There's a reason suicide is so high in men actually accomplishing it. Women attempt it 4 times more often, but it's one of the top 10 killers of almost every demographic from 12 years old till 50.
And that's, and we kind of talked about this in, well, I'm going to get into it. I don't know if I know we were going to talk about hacking and all those things, and I still want to get in that.
Just do a part 2 in a week. I don't care.
Well, whatever. Look, I'm always down to talk to another Marine.
This is important, though. It's actually important.
There's we'll go off the rails for a minute there, folks. There's the 22 challenge. For those of you that don't know what the 22 challenge is, it's 22 push-ups for 22 days for the 22 service members that will take their lives every day. I do 50
veterans, people,
prior service members. Mm-hmm. And this is a real thing. Bryan nailed it. We are told, suck it up. You got a mission to do. Get it done. Worry about that shit elsewhere. Now is not the time for it. And to be honest, most times it's not. At that moment, it's not. We don't have it.
But there's not the encouragement of like, all right, deal with it later. You have an imminent crisis. It doesn't help or serve you to be an emotional wreck when you need to be on point. Marines were really good in crisis situations of like not freezing and actually delivering results. But after it's over, that shock, the adrenaline that's just surged through your system and all the cortisol and all this other stuff. I had to learn all this stuff because you don't learn it anywhere unless you go and seek it out. And why am I fucking feeling like this? All of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I have stuff I regret. I don't know how to process, and it just fills up, and it will come out in weird ways, whether it's violence, whether it's alcoholism. You drink because you have to. You're trying to kill something inside of yourself. And you eventually don't like yourself. I didn't like myself for a very long time. Really long time. 20 years.
Ken's my best friend again, and he gives you 100% there on point, Bryan. You are. And it's you remind me, and I'll recommend this book, Shadow of the Sword. Read the book long time ago. I was actually I don't remember if I think it was in the Gunny's course. Might have been Gunny's course. And actually met the Marine who wrote the book. He is remember if he's a Bronze Star with a V or a Flying Cross or what it was, recipient. And what I love about Bryan is I can mention stuff and he's got 15 monitors in front of him and he's checking all of them and I can watch his eyes dart around. This is amazing.
You don't need birth control with this many TV screens in front of you.
But he's just referring to the fact that I have 8 children. Not all of them are mine.
You tie President Bush for not knowing when to pull out.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a personal favorite.
No, but kids are the best thing ever. Yeah, nothing touches it.
I'll argue that point.
When they're all asleep, it's magic.
Yes, they're amazing when they're sleeping. But I met this Marine and I read his book, and it's funny the stuff you're talking about. He was a drill instructor. He talks about going into a building while other Marines are in peril and saving lives and thinking the entire time, I'm going to die. Why am I doing this? And his body just reacts. His body just reacts. And he goes and he does these things. And when it's all said and done, he gets sent back he comes back home and he becomes a drill instructor and he's this amazing hero and he's done amazing things. And he's treated within the Marine Corps like he can't handle himself. What's your problem? Why aren't you Chesty Puller? Why aren't you Dan Daly? Why aren't you Smedley Butler?
But we're only getting biased information about those guys and not actually seeing how they probably really think about it.
Dude,
we don't get to see the fact that do you know why we cry? It's for a lot of reasons. but it's like you're overloaded. You don't know how to deal with an emotion. You don't know how to talk about something. Something is causing you pain. You're sad. You're angry. You're frustrated. Guess what? If you can cry, it means you're fucking human. That's it. And that's a good thing to be. But if you kill all of the bad stuff and you just suppress all the anger and all that other stuff, it suppresses the good stuff too. You can't selectively do it. Period.
You're nailing it. You know,
that's how I had to get clean and sober. That's why.
Well, what was going on there for you?
First, March 2013 was going through a really bad divorce. There was custody stuff with my daughter. We had gotten pregnant right as we're splitting, cheating. It was just a nightmare. And all of that emotional stuff went towards drugs and alcohol and hard drugs like meth, cocaine, pills, whatever I could get my hands on. It helps you stay up. It helps you be productive. It helps you feel like you're in charge or you've got some control over your life that is going out of control completely. You can't make this person see reason because they hate you. They're going through this. You're going through divorce. Breakups suck. I don't take them well. I've not ever done it really well. And recently was the first time going through a really bad breakup where I was able to process it very healthily, but it all became through books and asking other people for help and going to therapy. But in between all that, so I got custody of my 1-year-old son, my 7-year-old daughter in 2016, January. I also became a foster parent to my stepkid.
Really?
My ex-wife's oldest. I met her when she was 8. She was drugs at 13 or 14. So she's like 16 at the time. I became her foster parent. She was already living in group homes. She asked to come live with me. And she hated me when I was married to her mom. So I was like, all right, yeah, come live with me and your siblings. It's a kid who needs love and support. That's not a choice for me. Like that just seems to be, It's an obvious.
It's a no-brainer.
A year later, it's Thanksgiving. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, brain cancer in Japan. She fell down teaching art and never taught art again. A month after that was Christmas, and that's difficult for kids, and they can't see their parents, and the state has a restraining order against their mom, so she can't go see mom for Christmas, and she relapsed. And her boyfriend ended up selling her into prostitution. She was sold into sex trafficking, advertised on Backpage against her will. And that was a really shitty way to find out you can love a kid who's not your own biological flesh and blood, just like you can your own kid. You're like, God damn, you're annoying, but I love you so much. There's different. Anyway, so
do we got to go bury a body? Do we got to go bury a body?
No, so I heard he had an accident. I had nothing to do with it, but someone said he had an accident. To be honest, the night I found her, the police showed up and did a health and welfare because they couldn't just take my word for the fact that I'd tracked her down using what I do for a living.
Right.
They show up, it's 2 a.m. They go do a health and welfare. They get her out and they're like, we're surprised you didn't just go deal with it. We would have helped you move the body. And this is the police.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's like the one crime where it's like we can all kind of, oh, okay, yeah, no, that he fucking deserved it. I didn't for a variety of reasons, but I'll talk about that in the book mainly. So she gets out, taken to Children's Hospital, goes to rehab for 18 months, and I fell apart. So the movie Taken ends with him back on a private jet, and then they go to a birthday party, and there's a pony, and everybody's happy, and that's horseshit.
Yay!
I was having nightmares constantly. I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't sleep. I didn't want to sleep. The nightmares were awful. Just, it makes you want to kill yourself because they're the worst things you can imagine. And so this stuff gets in your head and you can't get it out. And I can't take care of my kids and we're running out of food and I'm running out of stuff to sell. I didn't sell anything in their rooms, but everything else, the house was empty and we ran out of food. And it was August, so I rescued her in January 2017. By August 5th, I had attempted suicide and didn't. I pawned my gun a week prior and bought drugs.
Well, that's bullshit.
dude.
I'm kidding. That's a
prior,
Marine joke. Look, folks, that's a pure Marine joke.
Prior
People
proper
right now are
planning
going to be
prevents
cussing me
piss
out.
poor
Like, why did he say
performance.
that?
No,
That's a
It's
pure
the
Marine joke.
dude.
That's a Marine thing.
That's a fail. That you're not failing at pulling a trigger and killing yourself, but that was a miracle. So then, buying a handful of Xanax and a 12-pack, and I wake up 2 days later to watch my kids go into foster care. I knew that's what they had to do, but
Right.
I didn't want to face that reality. That's awful because now I have to live and not be with them. That's like taking your heart and putting it in a fucking box. And that was worse. That was more pain than when I had attempted suicide. And I was like, something needs to change. I'm completely hopeless and broken. I went to the psych ward at the VA in Seattle. I was there for a week. And I went to an NA meeting and an AA meeting with people I'd been going to meetings with for years. And I found a church nearby on like a Tuesday and just walked in and just sobbed. And I was baptized October 22nd. Following that, I got my kids back 89 days out of the 90. The 90 is the cutoff point. That's a whole other miraculous story. Got my kids back and life just got, I found a job. I interviewed for that job and they're like, what's the biggest thing you've ever had to overcome? I was like, meth addiction. I said it 3 times to 3 different people and I got the job and I killed it. Like 2 years at that job. And everything changed. And I was going through a relationship that was progressing towards the right direction. And then all of a sudden it falls apart right before the pandemic. And I cried every day for 9 months. And then woke up one day and I was like, you know what? Okay, so I wrote a book and it's now rough draft stage about all of this to like, how did I get a better mindset out of all of this? How did I develop going from being a homeless meth addict who wanted to just buy drugs to then wanting to do a good job, but then it's really hard to do a good job when you've never practiced, like being responsible or reliable or consistent. The only reason I did it in the Marine Corps was because I had other people waking me up and like fucking beating me with whatever was available at the time. And now I'm older. Now I'm in less shape. Now I have nobody supervising and like, it's just a nightmare. And now my life's never been better. I have my 6-year-old son, my 12-year-old daughter. We play Beat Saber and we play board games and we spent.
Where's the older daughter at? Where's the older daughter?
She's 15, 20 minutes away. She's working on her GED. She's alive.
And I want you to know that, so we already had, so just throw these out here. And I'll say it one more time, folks, this is a Marine joke. Bryan understands that was a joke from one Marine to another. We do this to each other.
You want to hear the worst thing I've ever heard? It's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, God.
This will explain it. So I'm at the bar having a Red Bull with 3 friends who helped me find her after I rescued my daughter. And we're sitting at the table. And they're like, man, she was on Backpage. Someone, oh, my God, that's awful. But, I mean, just out of curiosity, how were her reviews?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh.
No. That was the purest expression of like, oh, it's funny it's hard to explain it if you have to write it down, but it's funny in the moment because it's the most fucked up, ballsy thing to say to the father.
So as Marines, this is what we do. We're horrible human beings to each other. This is why we love each other.
But there's a reason for it. I've studied this, and I actually got to ask John Cleese of Monty Python about dark humor. We became friends last year.
Really?
I'm not even shitting you. Go look at my Twitter feed. Like I went and visited him. We met in Dubai at a speaking engagement. We talked. I told him that joke. He laughed immediately, and then we talked about why. It's because humor and laughter pulls you out. It gives you a little respite from something that's awful.
Amen.
You can sit in this like my life is awful, miserable, and you might be correct. But you got to get out of it for just a second, and that humor can pull you out for a second. So if you keep everything inside, it will get worse. If you talk about it, it'll feel awkward for a minute until you practice it. And then guess what? The words magically, somehow, by talking, take the power away from that thing that was so awful inside, and it will go away. I promise you.
You're getting good feedback. Anthony says he appreciates this interview. Very strong, very important. Anthony is I love Anthony. Anthony and I have differing viewpoints on spherical shapes and
You would think, Jeanette, that surely they want your physical health and body to be strong, but they also want your mental health to be strong too. No, but their mental health definition is you are in control of your emotions, and emotions are useless, except anger.
Yeah, like that's the God's honest truth. And then Kitty, who is also Kathy, who is probably in the top 4 to 5 people that I've known for the longest time in my life, next to like biological people, and knows the Marine Corps better than most. She was married to a Marine who's still a good friend of mine, who she's still friends with, and she can outrun me now because I don't run no more. Fuck that.
I don't have that many challenge coins, but I do have one that I was given when I was homeless. I was at a bar and I sat down to this really, really old, tiny little black guy. We call him dark green in the Marine Corps, light green, whatever. So everyone's the same. Everyone's green, but green. Different shades. And they did that right, at least. So I sat down next to him, and he had a Marine Corps pin on his lapel, and he looked like his early 80s. Turns out he was a master gunnery sergeant. Not just any master gunnery sergeant. He was one of the Montford Point Marines.
Oh, really?
Most people don't know about this. It was Camp Johnson.
Yes, absolutely.
What used to be
backside.
From 1942 to 1949, 20,000 African Americans segregated from whites at that time.
Boot camp.
Until Roosevelt signed an order, or Eisenhower or something. Went to boot camp at Montford Point. 20,000 of them. In 1968 or 69, 500 of the surviving members founded the Montford Point Marine Association. And in 2013, President Obama awarded them the Congressional Gold Medal, the surviving 20 or 30 or so. He enlisted in 1945, and by 22, he was a master sergeant in Korea. He enlisted in World War II. He served in Korea. He was a master sergeant at 22. A colonel came up to him and said, "Aren't you a little young to be an E8?" And he goes, "There wasn't an age on the testing that I took, sir." And he got in trouble for that. He was told by lance corporals when he was a staff sergeant to get the fuck out of my barracks. You go sleep in the other one that has no heat, because I'm not sharing a barracks with a black guy. And they said something way worse. Way worse. Like slang terms I've never even heard of. And so he was in line to be the second or the third master gunnery sergeant ever, because that rank was only brought around in like 1953. He was the second or the third one.
Wow.
He gave me a Montford Point Marine Association coin because I was the first white Marine who's ever just sat with him and looked at him like skin color didn't matter, because he got out in like the 70s. It was a totally different time. But guess what he did after that? He got a master's degree in computer science and then learned Japanese. So I'm sitting with this really old black guy, and I'm this young, I've got this face, basically this face. Like, I'm fixing your computer, I'm doing your taxes, or one of the two. And we're talking in Japanese. And I'm watching out for his beer and listening to his stories, and he gives me that coin. It was like, holy crap. There was only a handful of those ever existed. My fire team and squad leader, first guys, were both black. They'd never even heard of Montford Point.
Really? See, I knew about it because Motor T school is on Camp Johnson.
Oh, that's got to be why. Because other than that, they don't teach it anywhere.
So Montford Point, so the backside of Montford Point still has white elephants on it. And for those of you who don't know what white elephants are, they're these big Quonset huts, like the half domes. If you ever watched, what's the movie, Heartbreak Ridge, very similar, but they're all white. And that was where they trained at, was on the backside of that base. And that's where, Montford Point comes from. And
they couldn't even get on Lejeune without a white escort.
So my oldest son, who was in the Coast Guard, was part of. So y'all can take your Boy Scouts, and that's great. You're a Boy Scout. There's a thing called the Young Marines, and my oldest son, when we were on Lejeune, or actually I was on New River, he was part of Young Marines, and the senior, I guess, kid, I don't know what you would call him. The senior person from the Young Marines that was with him, his last name was Johnson, because he was hash mark Johnson's like great grandson or something like that. And for those of you who don't know who Hash Mark Johnson was, he was also a Master Gunnery Sergeant in the Marine Corps, I believe Master Gunnery Sergeant. And he had so many hash marks, and hash marks are these lines that we get on our uniforms. Every 4 years, you get one. And he had so many that his hash marks touched his chevrons, and chevrons are a symbol of what rank you are. So his were that long. And my son was with him.
Sergeant Major Gilbert Hashmark Johnson, 1905 to 1972, is one of the first African Americans to enlist in the United States Marine Corps.
Anything else we got?
I've just pulled up his Wikipedia. 2 years.
And Kathy says that Kitty says that Johnson has a few great running trails.
They renamed it Camp Johnson in 1974, 2 years after he died in 1972.
Yeah, Hashmark Johnson.
He was one of the first black men to be trained as a Marine drill instructor as well.
I didn't know that. Like, I'm getting chills. And I told Ken, we were talking about this interview beforehand. I said the plan is to talk about all these other things, and the path that you've been on and what you've done as far as, because I always laugh about the dark web. Ken always is like,
the dark web is like using dial-up internet in 1995. It takes forever. It's not worth what you're going to find. And I spent 10,000 Bitcoins on the Silk Road when it was 50 cents a coin. Do you know what that's worth now? You don't want to look it up. It'll make you crazy.
Well, it's $31,000 a coin today. And at one point it was over 60,000. It's completely destroyed my Coinbase. Not that but I know what you're saying. So you had Bitcoins? You had like legit Bitcoins back in the day?
$600 million.
Like you and I wouldn't even be talking. You'd be on like a yacht somewhere.
I could buy. God. I could buy my own planet.
Drugs are a hell of a thing. Fuck.
Cocaine is so good it'll ruin your life immediately.
Oh,
in quick fashion. If you are the unlucky type who gets addicted to it immediately, it's not worth even trying, because you will change your priorities. You'll sell your kidney, and you'll be Googling kidney prices in different countries to figure out where to go to sell it to get more money.
Listen to me. For all of y'all that like that horrible show, and I know I'll catch so much heat, Breaking Bad was a shit show. Breaking Bad was not good. It was not interesting. There was nothing about the show Breaking Bad that I found interesting. And I watched 4 seasons of it.
But
because
that's what it's like if you're on meth.
But for 4 seasons, I watched that show sitting there folding laundry because everyone's like, wait, next season's better. Next season's better. It sucked. The show sucked.
But it captures the depression and the drug mentality.
Snowfall.
I don't need any more. No. I watch happy shit.
No, listen, look, Snowfall on Hulu is effing amazing. And it's about, you know why guys like you and I will love this show there, Brian? Because it's about how the CIA caused the drug trade.
Oh, yeah. No, there was a movie about that, too, and they killed the reporter.
Yeah.
Who broke the story, yeah.
Yeah, like, trust me. Snowfall on Hulu, because it's an FX show, is just, Anthony, why do you know that kidney prices, international kidney prices? I don't even want to know why he knows that.
I have a pretty good recollection of what they used to be.
And I will tell you right now, I don't know why Nathan's putting up football. He is so horrible at fantasy football. He's not good at fantasy football at all. He like knows football players, but he's not good at fantasy football. He's a horrible fantasy. I whoop his ass every year. And there's my kitty. And then we'll add one more to it. And again, why is Anthony friendly with Rick Ross? That's another weird one. Anthony is like, he's a death metal singer. I love Anthony. Anthony's my buddy. He sings death metal like that whole like that whole.
Yeah, it was based on his picture. I wasn't guessing that it was like blues or jazz.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not getting into any of that. Right. Nathan, it's my show. I'm going to talk shit all I want. You suck at fantasy football. Someday you'll learn how to play. But this is so different. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, folks, for those of you that have stuck with us, everybody who's listening and watching and listening, this was never – I had this whole thing in mind. We were going to talk about the dark web.
Tell me all about your plan.
I was like, we're going to get into, like, how can – where can I find like things on the dark web? Because I love Letterkenny, and there's a whole thing on Letterkenny about
the
dark
website's
web.
Even online. You can just Google dark markets on the dark web and then wait 45 minutes for them to load and then figure out what the current you don't need it. None of that stuff is necessary. Usually it's just counterfeit fucking electronics or watches or drugs. Lots of fucking drugs. And sometimes credit card stuff or whatever, but it's all illegal. You don't need to be doing it. There's plenty of other shit to do. Go paint your house. But all that shit, all the cybersecurity stuff, you can learn in books or find YouTube videos on. But the other stuff that I just talked about isn't all like readily available or no.
No, it's not. And we definitely
not many people want to talk about it.
What red rooms if you're going dark web.
My girlfriend actually wants me to build one in the house that we're going to buy.
What is a red room?
Sex.
Oh, dirty room. Well, shit, that's what the OnlyFans is for.
That's for other people to see. No one. Yeah.
What
OnlyFans did very well during the pandemic.
I just watched a documentary on that from ABC. I think it was ABC, and CBS because I only have CBS, and I was like, really?
It went from like 1 million pages to like 15 million pages in 5 months.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
That's going to be really weird explaining to your grandkids why you've got an OnlyFans as like 90-year-old.
Well, it'll be gone. It'll be like a MySpace. Like grandma.
There will be something worse.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I can still remember when the first one of my when I was on recruiting duty, and somebody told me about Facebook, and they were like, "Yeah, it's mostly for like college kids." Oh, okay. I don't know. And Anthony says, "No, not sexy red room are for snuff." Oh God,
snuff films and stuff. And people talk about it like it's this cult sort of. No one can really. No one can prove whether they're real or not. So that people like go murder somebody or do all sorts of awful stuff. And is it a fake? Is it not? I don't want that stuff in my brain. I don't watch horror movies. I don't watch scary. I can't. I watched The Joker and had nightmares for like 3 days.
Nope.
And to anyone who would like to say that, you're a pussy, you need to man up. Like, no, I don't. I've seen everything I've needed to see. I'd like to watch Tangled and then go to bed happy. Thank you.
I'm okay. Look, I'm with you. So like there's certain, like I like horror movies, but I only like zombie films.
I watch those. That's a whole different problem.
I was ruined by George R. Romero, and I've said this many times on the show. I grew up looking for exits and how to shoot zombies with holy water and see if that worked. Any of those things. Don't laugh. Don't laugh, Brian. Why are you smiling?
I do the same stuff.
I do it, and then it turned into like this whole other thing. And we had Neil DeMonte last week, and Neil's like, he's like, I've done he's made horror movies, and it's like this whole other thing. So when are we? Because we're gonna get ready to put a bow on this thing here, and we didn't talk shit about. I kept advertising like, hey, look, it's a cyber marine security. Y'all got fucked on that one, didn't you?
I know a couple actually really good people you could have on that. One guy he was in the Marine Corps. He was signals intelligence and then hacking, and then went to work for the NSA. And now he runs a company called Binary Defense.
So he's bi?
I'll introduce you
Defense?
to him. Binary is in like zeros and ones, not swings both ways.
I used to be able to count that.
Dude, you're not going to get that lucky. He's not your type.
Okay. Yeah. Did you ever seen a European watch when you were in the Marine Corps?
A European watch?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yes, I have actually. I know exactly what you're talking about. It just means.
Yep. Yeah, look that up,
You're
folks.
a nutty guy, aren't you?
Yeah, look that up there, folks. European watch. That was a big Marine Corps thing. Can't tell the time on that son of a
Texas
bitch.
belt buckle is the same thing. It's just a
Is it really?
different configuration. Yeah.
Yep. Cat brain.
Watch,
Cat brain.
yeah, watch Waiting. You'll get it. The
Cat
movie
brain.
Waiting. Yeah.
Yep, I remember that. Poor man's bouquet.
Basically, the Marine Corps is everyone's bored and everyone's talking shit because we're all waiting for something, and that something is an hour away or 12 hours away. We have no idea. No one's going to know except for Gunny, but Gunny hasn't been told either, so he's just trying to keep everyone from killing themselves.
I watched grown men jump off of a third floor of a barracks room into mattresses.
I watched a guy come back in the barracks after falling out of his third floor barracks room, hitting the window below him, breaking his arm, and trying to go back to bed like nothing happened because he was so drunk.
Yeah.
Hit, down, all the way around the barracks, in through duty, wearing nothing, covered in blood. Like, oh, I just left my ID in the room. I went to go smoke. You fucking liar.
We actually had one. You know how all the barracks rooms, the catwalks were like individual concrete blocks going in between each room. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen them, but I was on the older style with everything on one hallway and rooms on the outside.
Okay. So I was on Lejeune, and we actually had one where we went out, and I'll never forget. I wasn't there. I don't know what the hell happened. We found out afterwards. So one of the concretes, the rebar was loose. So a bunch of jackasses on like the second or third floor started jumping on this one pad of concrete.
I wonder what happened.
Oh yeah. It had to be third floor because I remember because they jumped on it so much that it collapsed. And the best part about it was it wasn't in front of their room. So whoever the guy, for those you can't see it, Brian's just laughing his head's down. So whoever the poor Marine was that was his room, these guys like jumped on it and he had to use a ladder.
Here's the best part. I was the first person to get NJP'd by the CO who just came from an infantry unit, 1-5. They were in Iraq on the very first push in. And he came in as the CO as a major, and he said, the smart Marines at DLI, 99 ASVABs, that kind of thing, we didn't get into less trouble. We just got into different trouble.
Yes.
It didn't mean like we were smarter, better. We just did weirder, dumb shit.
I had a guy come in my recruiting office. I'll keep his name to myself. I still remember his name. And he came in my recruiting office, and he's like, I want to be in the infantry. All right, man. Well, let's talk. You know, he had a bachelor's degree at the time in mechanical engineering. He goes, I want to be in the infantry. I said, well, let's talk. Goes and takes the ASVAB and cuts a 99. Can't get any better. And I'm talking like, Brian, it was like a 99 over like 120 or 130. It was high. I'm like, look, man, you could and we had out of the Philadelphia area, we had all kinds of units. We had intel units. We had all kinds of stuff. I'm like, you could blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, want to be a grunt. I'm like, but what about, he's like, I want to be a grunt. And that was typically what I saw was the kid who cut a 99 over whatever on his ASVAB wanted to be a grunt. He wanted to run tanks. He wanted to be basic. The kid who cut a 31 over 80, which means when he's
wanting to skate.
The 31 over 80 kid who, when he smiled, his heart slowed down because it was too much activity for the brain all at once. That kid had been told his whole life, don't laugh because it's true. That kid had been told his whole life, you can be anything you want, Johnny. And he wanted to be an astronaut.
And the military won't even hire you or find a job for you if your IQ is lower than 90 or 85 or something like that. You're unhireable or untrainable. That's 10% of the population.
31 over 80 is a 10th grade education. And Anthony wants to know, do you know a William Binney?
No, I would have said yes if I did.
Nope, no clue. And then Kathy says she watched a Marine jump off the back deck into a pile of leaves. Kathy watched a lot of us drink. She watched a lot of us drink. Over the years, she's watched a lot of us do a lot of shit.
I've watched a Marine hit on an inanimate object.
Not surprised.
There's lots of dumb shit that we can't say here in front of people.
We do a lot of dumb shit. So Bryan, we talked about none of your shit.
Well, have me on again there, Gunny.
We will definitely do this. We will figure it out. You are definitely welcome on here at any point in time with your snazzy little room there. Because I made fun of him earlier. For those who don't realize, he's hiding in his garage right now from his children.
One of them. I got to go pick the other one up from daycare in a few minutes.
Daycare, good lord!
At the beginning of the pandemic, there was 2 people who set out to build a wall. I built mine. Just saying.
Success. Somebody was successful.
I said that on Fox News interview with one of the reporters here in Seattle, but they cut it for some reason.
I can't imagine. I can't figure that one out. So you and I will figure out another time. Do we have an idea when we're going to get this book out?
Within 6 months, it'll be ready to publish.
So we'll figure it out, and when the book comes out, we'll talk about it live on air.
Yeah, because we could do this all day.
This is what I'm talking about. Jeanette is super fan, and I love Jeanette. Jeanette's one of my favorite people because she makes me feel good about my show. And you're absolutely right, Jeanette. This is important stuff. We will talk about your book. We'll get a time. We'll get it out there so other people can know about your book.
Appreciate it.
And this is for those of you that have never served. I don't know any other way to put it. And we're not trying to brag. Fuck it. I'm bragging. I don't give a shit. We just can talk to each other from Jump Street. I might have a challenge with another branch of service.
I know that the Marine Corps tribe, if you look at it from a tribalism perspective, it supersedes everything else. So whether even race, even family units, if your family connections aren't very strong, I landed in Okinawa on a way back to Tokyo, and I needed to catch a flight from a civilian airport, and another Marine who had no business and didn't have any reason to help me other than being a Marine gave me a 45-minute ride to the airport on a whim. It was like, I'll take you there. I got you. No problem, brother. That's how it always is. I got let out of a ticket 4 days ago on the way back from Salt Lake City because my license plate is a Marine Corps disabled vet, and it says Dad Bod. And the cop laughed so hard, and he's in the reserves, I didn't get a ticket.
Well, that's because you weren't in Virginia. That's a whole nother story.
Virginia. Make that mistake again.
Virginia's a whole nother story. Virginia's the only place where I've been pulled over while I was on active duty and was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. Here's my ID. And they'd be like, sorry about your luck there, boy. You're getting a ticket today. And I'm like, really?
You do that way too well.
Virginia is also the only place where I had a speed. Look, it was my fault. I won't blame. We'll just keep going here for a moment. I got an 80 and a 55. Reckless driving. Young Marine.
I was doing 81 and a 60 and got the warning just a couple days ago.
See? 80 and a 55. Young Marine. And when this happens, a friend of mine told me, hey, look, actually might have been my dad. I don't remember who it was. Said, hey, look, watch yourself. They're going to try to suspend your license in Virginia. I just know how they are. I said, okay. So the girl I was dating at the time, many, many moons ago, and I said to her, I said, hey, look, come with me. I was on 28 days leave, believe that? And I wasn't on going overseas. So I said to the girl, I said, hey, why don't you come with me? She said, all right. So we were sitting there, and the judge going through it. Well, listen here, there, boy. What you got? And I was like, yep. He goes, what state your license in? I said, Bryan, as big as this computer screen. I looked at him and went, Maryland. And he went, well, I can't suspend your license, but you can't drive in this state for 30 days. And I was like, okay. I had 28 days of leave I was on, and I just made sure when I drove home, I drove real safe. Virginia is a horrible, horrible state. They're like the Midwest of the U.S. Like the East Coast has kind of figured it out, and then there's Virginia. Ken says, same. He told me, oh, you're in the Marines. You should know better. Yep, in Virginia.
I got a hard stop.
I know. We got to get ready to do this. Folks, let's go over a few real quick things here because I know Bryan's got to get ready to do his thing. Obviously, we have BryanSeely.com. You've been seeing it coming across this whole time. Something about Symptiv.com. What is it?
Syemptive.
Syemptive.com. We've seen that this whole time. Please make sure you check Bryan's stuff out. For those of you that are listening, make sure you take time and you like, you subscribe, you do all the things. You can find us always on Instagram at Above the Bar Podcast. Our Twitter is at Above the Bar 4. Our email, if you have any questions or you know somebody that might be a great guest, make sure you go email me at theabovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, always, folks, like, subscribe. I know it sounds like a broken record, but this is the only way we get these messages out. This is the only way we make these things happen. Bryan, you get the final word.
Harmonica.
All righty, folks. Be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation, found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.